Chill out, man, everything's gonna be alright. All you've got to do is get things tight enough so nothing falls from your possession.
Once in a while, a group of musicians form a chemistry that individually they all have a certain personality, but collectively it's kind of much bigger than anything else. So they always have been kind of larger than life to me and to many, I think.
The chemistry between all of them is obvious. I mean, when you see them together and you see how they interact, you know, there's so many bands who, when you're working with them, if there's 4 people in the band, as soon as the camera stops rolling, they immediately go to each of their 4 motorhomes, and they won't see each other again until they all have to be on camera again. And that's not the case with them. They just hang around, and they are together a lot.
Unlike a lot of bands, it does seem to be a real creative democracy. There doesn't seem to be one dominant partner there, and even though I'm sure Anthony Kiedis is the most recognisable face, I think they're all fairly well known. You know, Flea is very well established personality in his own right, and they've all got plenty to say for themselves in the press. There's no real dominant songwriting force in the band because they don't really write songs in a conventional way. You know, it's very much it seems to be someone comes up with a riff and then they build around that. So yeah, they're unusually democratic, and it's 4 very definite personalities that people are aware of. Yeah.
Each member shares equally in everything, in the decision or the power to vote or the profits, or everyone has a say.
So on set, you know, it's important that they're each given, you know, their own, you know, unique part of the video, or their own, you know, that they're all treated equally. And I think in a lot of bands that's not really the case. They all are very interested in what's going on with the band, and it's the most important thing in their lives.
The band's chemistry is undoubtedly a huge part of their phenomenal success. But credit also has to be given to the 2 original members' perseverance and determination.
Red Hot Chili Peppers was their project, you know, and that was their band. They started it, and so they were going to stick through it. You know, it's like lots of people like switch from band to band to band to band to band, and you never really have your own identity. You know, you can play, you know, be a sideman in a zillion bands or super groups, and it's. I think it has a lot to do with, you know, my philosophy is that if you start with a group of guys and you all grow in the same direction, rather than like trying to find the parts to fix it, you know, or like, oh, we need a guy that's like this and a guy like that to create it. I think you can't create stuff like that. It has to evolve. You know, I think that's what happened with them.
You know, we have a ridiculously wonderful chemistry that we're very grateful for, and you know, we suit up and we show up and we make music, and then we put it out.
Since their first underground gigs in the mosh pits of LA's diviest clubs, the Chili's have always maintained an admirable reputation for committing 100% to their live performances.
The first time I saw them, I was a college student in Miami, and I went and saw them at the Cameo Theater in Miami Beach, which I think is still around, though now it's sort of a club. But back then it was a great punk venue. It was an old movie theater, and they'd removed the first probably 10 rows of seats for a mosh pit, but they hadn't taken the bolts out of the floor. So it was just a disaster. And I saw Black Flag and the Dead Kennedys there, and also saw the Chili Peppers, and didn't know a huge amount about them. I mean, I'd heard Mommy Where's Daddy. That was my only exposure, and it was great. Huge amounts of energy. And at first, you know, you'd think, oh, well, they're more of a funk band than a punk band, but in that venue, they stepped up. It was an amazing show, really great.
I think that I've seen them in relatively large venues, and I've also seen them in relatively small venues, and needless to say, a small venue is always better for a fan. There's more direct energy coming from the band per se than when you've got 16,000 of your closest and most personal friends all having a great time. The energy sort of spreads out and comes from the audience as well as the band. So, you know, depending on the venue, you know, it seems the energy is derived in a different way.
Dick Rude, a longtime friend of the band, has followed them on countless tours, making behind-the-scenes documentaries.
I've spent my whole life backstage with those guys, you know, because they're primarily my friends. Well, they are my friends, and although I've worked with them quite a bit, mostly I'm always privy to what goes on backstage, or I've been in the recording studio plenty of times when they've recorded, and I've been on tour with them making a documentary, so I know what goes on in every waking moment of their touring lives, pretty much, you know?
We'd, before the show, Anthony would have like this little ghetto blaster, and he'd come around, and he'd be doing his warm-ups and stretches, and we'd always have this thing where we'd like go, what songs do you want to hear? So we'd put on James Brown, or like some Bob Marley, or like, I don't know, some Run DMC or something just to kind of get us pumped up, and we'd run around.
The early days when people were drinking and drugging, and there were, you know, a lot more people around, friends and girls, and it was kind of like an open house. It was that whole rock and roll mentality that you would imagine, or that you've seen on plenty of programs before.
And we'd have this stupid stuff we do, like when we go to a restaurant, when you order your food, you had to say a rhyme, and everything you say had to end with, because I'm a grizzler. Like, say you want, you know, well, I want a steak sandwich, put it on the sizzler. You want to know why? Because I'm a grizzler. And we have to say that. And by the time John was in the band, all the rhymes were, you know, we took all the good rhymes, and like he was just like, grizzler, I'm a grizzler. It was just little stupid shit we did to just keep ourselves amused.
In front of the worldwide audiences the band now attracts, the Chili's appear as wild as ever. But backstage, things are a little different.
The atmosphere is relaxed. There's yoga, there's herbal drinks, Chad has a few beers, they talk, they laugh, they play some music, maybe a little warm-up, stretching, and very routine-oriented. You know, okay, I have this much time before we go on, so it's time to get dressed. Now I have this much time, let's have the ginseng tea.
The band still has a reputation for their wild stage antics.
They recognized very early on that it was important to gain attention in any way possible without actually crossing the line.
We did a Sockman thing one night where, like, those guys all had the big gym socks, the long, you know, those long ones that come way up to here, those long gym socks, and I had these little bitty ankle choking Jamaican socks, like, you know, with the red, gold, and green, and I had to put that on, and they had on these big socks, and I was like, it was very embarrassing.
Early on, they used to paint themselves up with day-glow fluorescent paints and then perform like that, you know, so with black lights. And there was always some sort of thing going on, you know, the socks, or they later had fire hats that they would wear. You know, they'd come out for their encore with these hats on and fire blowing out of their heads.
I love playing for small audiences when we play live, though I prefer playing for big ones. Yeah, I prefer the big ones only because, you know, this band has been around for 20 years, and we played for years to little clubs. I mean, I played 1 billion of them, you know, and it's not like we're this band that all of a sudden became famous and started playing arenas right away.
Like all big groups of the last decade, the Chili's have made the most out of the opportunities music videos have to offer.